G'day folks, it's DIY Guy 123 here. I've got a record number 5 bench vise and I've got it disassembled now, but I'm going to show you how to extract those pesky seized in screws that hold your jaws onto your vise. So I'm repairing this old record number 5 vise. It's one of the real deal record made in England vices, so it's worth keeping. And of course, one of the things I noticed is when I got it, the jaws, when you shut it, the jaws were not parallel. And there was also, I know there's an extreme gap here right now, so it wasn't that bad, but there was also a gap more at the bottom than at the top between the jaw and this face right here. So why is that? Well, I thought maybe the jaws were the wrong size when they were put in there and they didn't fit nicely on that little shoulder, or maybe corrosion had built up underneath. And when metal corrodes, it expands to like 20 times its original volume. So when the outer surface of something gets rusty, you know, that's why bolts seize and get tighter, is because it used to be an air gap there, or a little bit of a gap, and then it gets filled in with rust over time and gets tighter and tighter. So I want to take these off, clean out the corrosion underneath, and then reset them and see if they fit flush in there. I've already got one side off, and these are quite challenging, these bolts, to get out. Jaw bolts. They look like this. I don't know what thread they are. They're not really long. So anyway, they got a flat head on them. Now, always they're seized in there. And so if you take a regular screwdriver like this, all you're going to do is strip that head and tire yourself out. They're not going to come out unless the vise is only a few years old. So the other kind of tool that you can use is this tool. It's an impact driver. So basically, you pound down on the top of it and your pounding force drives the screw bit this way, but also there's a mechanism in there that causes it to rotate. And I use this to get the first few out, but I've destroyed the tool. It gave up. The internals in it couldn't handle the pounding. So how to get them out? Well, I broke the head off of this one right here, and there's a little bit of the stud sticking out. And this happened on the first jaw I took out. So there was a small amount of the stud protruding, about above where my fingernail is, was protruding, and I was able to use these screw extractors, or bolt extractors, these things. And what you do is you pound them on and they're reverse threaded. So as they pound on, you should be taking a wrench and twisting them on to the bolt that you're trying to extract. And the pounding force of driving them on plus the torque is what is targeted to release these things. So if you have a bit of the stud protruding, like I did above my fingernail, these are a good first option. If that doesn't work, and you have to drill it, then this is another option. You drill a hole, the right size hole, then you pound these down in gently while you're turning them to embed these threads in your, and these are reverse thread as well, embed the threads in the hole you just drilled, and then you can turn them out that way. Yet another kind of screw extractor is this right here, and you again drill an appropriate size hole and pound this down. Anything that you're pounding down in a hole to get it to bite, you have a tendency to expand the hole that you've just drilled and expand the bolt against the threads that you're trying to unseize. So I've used these things. I haven't used this kind before, but I've used this spiral kind before with some success. If you break one of these off, it's really awful because they're very, very hard and almost impossible to drill out. So if none of that works, then what I've done in the past is I've ground the stud off flush to the surface that it's protruding from, put a nut over top of it, and weld it on. And that has worked beautifully because as the weld cools, it shrinks the bolt ever so slightly. Oh, sorry, ground it flush and drill down in the bolt a little bit, not a ton. And then put a nut over top, and when you're welding, it's hard to do on small bolts, but use your wire feed welder right down to the bottom of the hole you drilled, fill that puddle up, and then fill it up against the nut you put on the top. And when the whole thing cools, it will tend to shrink the bolt and release those threads. And so those are all the ways that I've always done it in the past. Today, I found a new way, and it's using just a regular air hammer. And of course you want safety glasses on for this. And you just work the bolt on either side. pretty loose there now. Let's see. So the thing about doing this kind of work is maybe it takes 5 different tricks to get something free, you know, but don't give up. Don't do anything stupid like hit it with a big maul. So of course I'm not going to reuse that bolt right there, but basically that shows you how to get these things out. Now let's see if there. Okay, so look at all the corrosion that's built up on that. And if you look right here, look, even flakes out. So that's the reason why that jaw wasn't sitting flush. So anyway, I'll clean all that out with a wire brush. So I want that interface to be absolutely clean so that jaw fits absolutely perfect in there and is parallel. The two jaws will be parallel. Okay, so now we've got the second kind of situation where the bolt's broken off. So let's see what we can do here. So it certainly does not hurt to have heat against this. So you want to heat the surrounding metal, not the actual bolt. Let's just let that simmer for a few minutes there, or a minute maybe. Now I'm going to pull out the stud that or the bolt that I extracted earlier. You just turn this the opposite way. Ooh. Yeah. So that's what that looks like, clear. I started with the 5/16 8mm size last time, but it just stripped the threads off of the bolt. So really all I'm doing is just doing this to round off those threads, because I don't think this is going to work. Well, sometimes things happen easier than you may imagine they would. So this is a case of heat, all the impact, getting the jaw off it, and also once you break the head off a bolt, a lot of the stress comes off of the bolt anyway. Look, it just unscrews like that. So there are your mechanisms to get out rusty, broken off bolts out of any kind of a vise, and this is a record number 5. This is DIY Guy 123. If you like my videos, please subscribe.